Welcome to Module 4, Funding and Finance Strategy. In this session, we're going to explore how to fund your innovation, not just in theory, but in a way that's practical and tailored to your mission and stage. We'll start by looking at the different types of finance available: grants, loans, equity, crowdfunding, and emerging mechanisms like biodiversity credits. Each comes with its own opportunities and trade-offs, and will help you understand when and why you might choose one over another. Next, we'll explore how to match funding sources to your business maturity and your impact goals. Whether you're at idea stage or already operational, your funding strategy needs to reflect where you are and where you're heading. We will also walk through what funders look for, from clarity of purpose to your ability to deliver impact. Then we'll guide you through drafting a funding strategy using a simple tool, the Funding Strategy Planner, which you'll use to map out potential sources and timelines. Finally, we'll wrap up with next steps to help you finalize your plan. Let's get started. Intro to Funding and Strategy. The overall purpose of this program is to build the capacity of innovators like you, individuals or teams working on Horizon-funded climate solutions. Our goal is to help you move beyond technical success and into real-world application. That means developing the tools and strategies needed to exploit, scale, or sustain your innovations through strong business planning, smart funding strategies, and confident investment pitches. In Module 4, we're shifting our focus to funding and finance. We know that early-stage innovations often struggle to find the right financial support, especially in the climate and nature-based sectors. This module is designed to help you understand the funding landscape, specifically grants, loans, and equity, so you can make informed decisions. You'll also learn how to match different funding types to your stage of development and your impact goals. We'll also introduce you to what funders typically look for and help you begin crafting a simple, personalized funding strategy you can continue to build on. When it comes to financing your innovation, it's important to understand the broad categories of funding that are typically available. Most early-stage ventures, especially those with a social or environmental mission, rely on a combination of different funding types as they grow. The three most common types are grants, loans, and equity. Grants are non-repayable funds, usually provided by governments, NGOs, or philanthropic foundations. Loans, on the other hand, are borrowed capital that must be repaid with interest, usually to banks or microfinance institutions. Equity involves giving up a share of your business in exchange for investment, and are commonly provided by angel investors or venture capitalists. Each option suits different stages of business development, risk profiles, and strategic goals. We'll explore how to choose the right fit for your context in the next slide. Each funding type has advantages and trade-offs. The key is choosing the right mix for your stage of growth, your impact goals, and your appetite for risk or dilution. For grants, the major pro is no repayment. However, they're often competitive and short-term. They can, however, be a great fit for early-stage or high-impact initiatives that don't yet generate income. For loans, the major pro is that they preserve your ownership. However, they do carry financial risk. As a funding type, loans are more accessible to businesses with a revenue stream or a clear path to repayment. For equity, the advantage lies not only in access to large capital, but also to mentorship and strategic support. However, it also means shared ownership and decision-making. This funding type is a best fit for high-growth businesses with scalable models. Alongside traditional funding types, a growing number of emerging and hybrid models are now available, especially for mission-driven and nature-based enterprises. These can offer more flexibility alignment with your values, or access to niche sources of support. One example is crowdfunding, which allows you to raise money directly from the public. This can be reward-based, where backers receive a product or benefit in return, or equity-based, where they receive a share in your business. Crowdfunding works well if you have a strong story, a defined community, or a consumer-facing product. Impact investing is another powerful model. These investors are looking for both financial return and measurable social or environmental outcomes. This is often a good fit for climate and nature-based projects, especially those with robust monitoring frameworks. Convertible loans are also gaining popularity. These start as loans but can convert into equity under certain conditions, giving both parties flexibility. Finally, public-private models, like the approach used by Peatland Finance Ireland, blend grants, market-based finance, and policy support to fund ecosystem restoration. These options may not work for everyone, but they're worth exploring, especially if you're building something ambitious, community-rooted, or deeply impact-focused. Choosing your direction. One of the most important steps in building a funding strategy is understanding what kind of finance is appropriate for your current stage of development. Trying to secure venture capital at the idea stage, for example, is usually unrealistic and often distracting. At the idea or prototype stage, you're likely to rely on grants, personal savings, or even crowdfunding campaigns. You might also receive in-kind support, like free workspace or mentoring, through an incubator. These sources are typically low risk and mission aligned, making them ideal while you're still validating your concept. As you move into pilot or early operations, you may be eligible for seed grants, small loans, or even investment from angel investors who understand early stage risk. Once you've demonstrated traction, whether through users, revenue, or measurable impact, you can begin looking at growth finance, including venture capital, bank loans, or impact investment. For mature businesses, options broaden to include blended finance, strategic partnerships, and reinvestment of profits. The key takeaway is this: don't try to jump ahead too quickly. Choose funding that reflects where you are now while laying the groundwork for where you want to go. When you're building an impact-driven venture, not all funding is created equal. Some sources may offer capital but come with expectations, like rapid scaling or high financial returns, that could clash with your mission or pace. So it's essential to think about fit, not just availability. Start by asking yourself, does this funder understand or value the type of impact I'm trying to make? Mission-driven work, whether focused on climate, biodiversity, or social equity, often needs patient capital and flexibility. For example, if you're delivering clear community or environmental benefits, but not generating revenue yet, grants and public funds are typically the best fit. If you can measure outcomes, such as restored habitats, carbon saved, or people engaged, then impact investors may be interested. They seek both financial return and measurable change. Equity or venture capital can be suitable if your business is market ready and capable of scaling, but be cautious. This route usually involves shared ownership and performance pressure. Bottom line, align funding not only to your business model, but also to your mission and values. The right funder will support your vision, not force you to compromise on it. Now that you've seen the types of funding and how they align with your stage and mission, the next step is to make the right choice for you. That means looking beyond what's available and focusing on what's truly a good fit. There are three key filters to help guide your decision. First, feasibility. What can you realistically access at this point in your journey? If you don't yet have customers or measurable results, then impact investment or loans may be premature. Second, alignment. Does the funding source respect your goals and values? Will it allow you to stay mission-led? Some funders want rapid financial returns. Others are patient and purpose-driven. Choose those who align with your pace and priorities. Third, risk. What are the trade-offs? Loans come with repayment obligations. Equity means giving up some control. Even grants can have strings attached. Make sure you understand what's expected in return. As you complete your funding strategy planner, use these filters to shape a path that's sustainable, mission aligned, and realistic for where you are right now. There's no perfect formula, but there is a best fit for you. What funders look for. When approaching any funder, whether it's a grant body, investor, or a lender, it's important to understand how they think. Most funders aren't just looking for a good idea. They're looking for a credible team, a clear purpose, and a plan that makes sense. The first thing they want is clarity of purpose. Can you explain, in simple terms, what your innovation does, why it matters, and who it helps? A lot of promising ventures fall down here. They bury the value in technical detail or don't connect to the funder's goals. Next, they'll look at the team. Do you have the right people in place, or at least access to the skills needed to deliver? You don't need a huge team, but you do need commitment and capability. They'll also want to see evidence of potential. That could be early user feedback, a working prototype, or signs of market demand. Funders want to feel that their money will unlock something real. Finally, they'll consider how the funds will be used. A realistic and focused budget shows you've thought things through. It's not about having all the answers. It's about showing you're ready to take the next step. Not all funders are looking for the same thing, so a key part of your funding strategy is tailoring your message to match the type of funder you're approaching. Grant providers, for example, are usually focused on mission alignment. They want to know that your work supports their goals, whether that's biodiversity, climate adaptation, or community development. They'll look for clear outcomes, solid impact metrics, and a realistically delivered plan. Investors, on the other hand, care most about your potential for growth and return. They'll want to see a clear route to scale, evidence that there's market demand, and a capable team that can execute. Your impact may be a bonus, but the business case must be strong. Lenders like banks or microfinance providers are focused on risk. Can you repay the money? Do you have a reliable income stream or security? Your track record, financials, and cash flow matter here. Impact investors sit somewhere in the middle. They want a return, but they also expect measurable social or environmental outcomes. So the key takeaway, do your homework, adapt your language, your ask, and your materials to fit what your funder values most. One size definitely doesn't fit all. Regardless of the funding type, one thing all funders look for is credibility. They want to know that you're not just passionate, but that you're capable, committed, and thinking realistically about what it will take to succeed. One of the best ways to build credibility is through clear metrics. Whether it's hectares restored, people reached, carbon avoided, or products sold, funders want to see how you measure success. Even simple, early indicators can help demonstrate traction and potential. A track record, no matter how small, also matters. This might be a successful pilot, a community partnership, a press mention, or testimonials. If you've done something tangible, highlight it. Realistic planning is another signal funders look for. Be honest about timelines, risks, and what the funding will unlock. An overly ambitious or fake plan could be a red flag. Don't underestimate the power of good governance either. Transparency, accountability, and clear decision-making structures all give funders confidence. And finally, if you can show co-funding or in-kind support, even in small amounts, it demonstrates shared responsibility and buy-in. Credibility isn't about being perfect, it's about showing that you're thoughtful, serious, and ready to deliver. Preparing a funding strategy. So what exactly is a funding strategy and why do you need one? Think of it as your financial roadmap. A funding strategy helps you define how much money you need, what it's for, when you need it, and where you're likely to get it. It brings structure to your fundraising efforts and helps you stay focused as you move through different stages of growth. This isn't a formal investor pitch or a 30-page business plan. It's a living document that guides your next steps and gives you confidence when speaking with potential funders. At its core, your funding strategy should answer a few key questions. How much funding do we need over the next 12 to 24 months? What will the funds be used for? Staff, equipment, pilot activities, or scaling? Which types of funding make the most sense at our stage? And in what order should we pursue them? You'll start drafting this strategy using the funding planner template later in this module. For now, just remember, clarity and intentionality are key. Funders want to know where their money is going, and so should you. Now, let's look at the core building blocks of your funding strategy. These are the elements that will help you move from a fake need for money to a clear, actionable plan. First is your funding goal. This is the total amount of money you'll need over a defined period, typically the next 12 to 24 months. Be realistic, not aspirational. Funders want to know that you've thought this through. Next is the use of funds. Break down what you need the money for. Maybe it's to complete a prototype, hire a part-time coordinator, run a pilot, or invest in marketing. Specificity builds trust. Then define your funding mix. Will this come from grants, loans, equity, or a blend of sources? Different goals might need different types of funding. Timing is also crucial. When will you need the funds? How long will they last? If you have a funding gap on the horizon, that's something to plan for now. Finally, think about funder fit. Make sure the sources you're targeting actually align with your mission, size, and maturity. The better the match, the better your chances of success. We'll use these elements to begin building your own strategy in the activity. As you begin preparing your funding strategy, it's just as important to know what not to do. Avoiding these common pitfalls can save you time, frustration, and missed opportunities. The first mistake is being too vague. Saying we need funding to grow won't convince anyone. Funders need to know how much, why, and what impact their support will enable. The more specific you are, the more credible you become. Another risk is relying too heavily on the funding source, or one funding source. If that grant doesn't come true, or an investor backs out, your whole plan could stall. Try to identify at least 2 or 3 potential sources to build resilience into your strategy. Many innovators also underestimate how long funding takes to secure. Grant applications and investment rounds can take months, so build in buffer time and don't wait until the money runs out to act. Also be careful not to underestimate your true costs. Include overheads, time delays, and unexpected expenses, so you're not left short. And finally, don't chase funding that doesn't align with your mission or stage. It's better to walk away than take money that could pull you off course. A thoughtful plan beats a rushed one every time. Now it's your turn to build your own funding strategy. Start by downloading the blank template provided with this module. Start with where you are, defining your business stage as well as your innovation and its core impact goal. Next, estimate your funding needs. How much funding will you need for the next 12 to 24 months? What is the funding needed for, and when will it be needed? Next, identify suitable funding types, including the types of funder that are a good match for your impact and stage. Next, research real funders, identifying 3 to 4 potential funding sources. Finally, reflect and plan. Identify your biggest funding challenges and risks and the concrete actions you will take to advance your funding strategy. Before you begin, here are a few quick tips to help you get the most out of this worksheet. First, be realistic. You don't need to know your exact budget down to the euro. Funders appreciate thoughtful estimates that show you've considered what's needed. Second, don't overthink it. This isn't a final investor pitch, it's a planning tool for you. It's okay if it's rough around the edges. The goal is to get your ideas down and identify what still needs work. Third, think about alignment. What kind of funder is likely to support a project like yours? Grants might suit early stage, high impact work. Investors might want something scalable with a clear revenue model. Choose what fits your mission and maturity. Make sure to use the cheat sheet we've provided. It links to real funding schemes across Europe and can help spark ideas. And finally, keep it simple. Clarity is more important than complexity. Funders want to understand your vision, your needs, and how their support can make a difference. This worksheet is the first step towards building a confident, purpose-driven funding plan, so take your time and make it work for you. Next steps and further exploration. Let's wrap up this module by outlining your next steps. The most important thing you can do now is to complete your funding strategy worksheet. Use it to clarify your funding needs, map out realistic sources, and begin shaping a pathway forward. Once your draft is complete, take time to research real funders. Use the cheat sheet we've provided to explore 3 to 5 funding programs or opportunities that align with your mission, legal structure, and stage of development. Then seek feedback. Share your draft with a peer, mentor, or support organization. Getting an outside perspective can help you refine your messaging and identify any gaps you might have missed. If you're preparing for a funding application or conversation with an investor, use what you've developed here to start shaping a simple, focused funding narrative. What you need, why you need it, and the impact it will enable. Remember, your funding strategy isn't static. As your innovation evolves, your needs and options will shift too. But this worksheet gives you a strong foundation and a clear next step. If you'd like to go further with this topic and deepen your understanding of funding strategy, here are some highly recommended resources to explore at your own pace. First, The Essential Guide to Crafting a Bulletproof Funding Strategy by Strategy Capstone is a great all-round starting point. It offers step-by-step guidance on how to structure your strategy and avoid common pitfalls. Next is a practical fundraising strategy template from the Chartered Institute of Fundraising. This is especially useful if you're approaching trusts, foundations, or philanthropic funders. It walks you through goals, case for support, and planning your ask. Nesta's Funding Innovation Guide is another excellent resource, particularly for early stage or mission-driven innovators. It's full of examples, tips, and questions to help you refine your approach. And finally, you can explore Peatland Finance Ireland as a real-world case study of blended funding in action. Their model brings together public, private, and philanthropic capital to support large-scale nature restoration. All links are available in the module notes, so you don't need to write anything down. Just take a few moments after this module to dive into the resources that resonate with your journey. In the next module, we'll shift gears from planning to pitching, helping you communicate your value and vision clearly to potential funders, partners, and supporters. Module 5, Pitching with Purpose, is all about telling your story in a compelling and confident way. Whether you're applying for a grant, approaching an investor, or joining an accelerator, the ability to explain what you do, why it matters, and why it's fundable is absolutely crucial. We'll explore how to structure a simple, high-impact pitch deck, usually just 5 to 7 slides, that highlights your solution, your impact, your ask, and your credibility. You'll also learn tips for using storytelling techniques to make your pitch more memorable and emotionally engaging. And we'll walk through common mistakes to avoid, from information overload to unclear asks. By the end of Module 5, you'll have the tools and confidence to start crafting a pitch that matches your mission and speaks directly to funder priorities. So take what you've built here, your funding plan, your clarity of purpose, and get ready to bring it to life through your pitch.